had a Japanese version of Final Fantasy V and stumbled my way for hours and hours and hours. I grew up on a US base in Japan. It was elementary school. It was more like living in a slightly odd suburb in America than it was living in Japan. Anyway, my uncle would send American Super Nintendo games, but sometimes we'd buy Super Famicom games and carve slots into the cartridges to play them. Eventually, got to Exdeath. It's this giant tree. I had a hard time beating Exdeath, and I didn't touch the game for months. And it was hard because Exdeath was the final boss. And I didn't realize it. It's probably obvious if I was able to follow the story, but of course it was in Japanese. I didn't really know what was going on. So if I had known that, I probably would have been more motivated to grind for a few days and power through and beat the game. I didn't know I was that close to the finish line, so day after day, I chose not to start. Eventually, we got the internet, and I learned I was on the last boss. I'm guessing this was from Game FAQs, but this is decades ago, so I'm not sure what website it was. Anyway, I was motivated to finish, motivated to slap the cartridge back in and slide the very satisfying power switch on. I needed to start one last time, and that brings me to this first section. So the idea here is just like to finish, you have to start over and over and over. If you wake up and have 1% left on a project, you're almost at the finish line. To finish, you still need to start that day. You need to overcome the friction to get started on that last 1%. It might not be that much friction because of the excitement of finishing. It might be a lot of friction because you don't actually realize it's only 1% left on the project. You could even put it off for a while without realizing it. From Neil Fiore in The Now Habit, he writes, "Keep starting. Finishing will take care of itself. When it is time to start the last 30 minutes that will finish the project, that too will be an act of starting. The start of the conclusion of your current project as well as the beginning of your next. So forget about finishing. If you must worry, worry about starting. In order to finish, all you have to do is keep starting." This next section here, I titled Completion Replenishes Energy. This quote is from Oliver Burkeman in Meditations for Mortals. He writes, "Yet the truth is that completion replenishes energy rather than using it up. So getting into the habit of finishing what you start creates fuel for further meaningful productivity." You know where you can find a lot of excitement and energy? The end of a marathon. Even though people just ran miles and miles for hours and hours, they're energized because they finished. The same thing applies to projects. The energy is replenished when you finish the project. AI tools make it super easy to start 10 things, which initially feels energizing. It's like sprinting out of the gate. You iterate on 5 of those and then abandon 5 of them. You keep iterating on 3 of them. Now 3 are far enough that you can see the finish line in the distance somewhere, but you just do have a bunch of these open loops. Now you can return to those tools and start up 10 new things instead of finishing those 3 things. Or you can spread the energy across the 3 to try to finish those. Still, that's a little bit distracting. So it might be best to focus on finishing 1 at a time, replenish the energy, finish the second, replenish the energy, and then the third. Open loops drain energy. Completion replenishes. Next section, vague goals feel impossible. Greg McKeown suggests getting really clear when defining what done looks like. From his book Effortless, he writes, "If you want to make something hard, indeed, truly impossible to complete, all you have to do is make the end goal as vague as possible. That's because you cannot, by definition, complete a project without a clearly defined endpoint. You can spin your wheels working on it, you can tinker with it, you can and likely will abandon it. But to get an important project done, it's absolutely necessary to define what done looks like." That's the end of the quote. Video games are great because done is beating the final boss. It used to be simple in that way. So around that time, after Final Fantasy V Chrono Trigger came out and we had that, my uncle sent, I think he sent that. I can't remember if he sent that or I bought that. Anyway, Chrono Trigger was the first game I experienced with multiple endings. It introduced New Game Plus, so now beating the boss was only sort of done. You wanted to get the best ending or all of the endings, and today it's even crazier where you have all sorts of open world games and even closed games where done means collecting every single thing in every nook and cranny of the game. Creative projects can feel more like today's games, so you need to get clear on what done means, defining that for yourself. So with a game, you can decide, you know what, I don't need to be a completionist here. Beating it was, that's going to be done for me. And you can do the same with creative projects. You get to define what done means, but it's important to define that. Otherwise, it will just feel like this always open loop. Next section here, aim for daily if you want to keep momentum.
Here's this quote from Jocelyn K. Glei in Manage Your Day to Day. Frequency makes starting easier. Getting started is always a challenge. It's hard to start a project from scratch, and it's also hard each time you re-enter a project after a break. By working every day, you keep your momentum going. That's the end of the quote. And right now, I'm getting back to working out and thinking about what workout program to use, which I don't want to make it inevitable, but yeah, I'll probably like pick one, do it for a few weeks, hop off, and then I'll see some shiny new one to hop onto. But I was pretty consistent earlier this year with Strong Lifts 5x5 plus, so that's probably the one that I'll land on, and hopefully I can I did it for, I think it was like 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks actually. I was pretty consistent with it, 3 days a week, and I might get back on that. I have enjoyed daily programs because the frequency makes starting easier. The workouts are usually not as intense or not as long for daily programs, and you just get this practice starting the workout over and over. A good thing to do is to combine the daily idea with a weekly goal that isn't perfect 7 out of 7 days, which might be aiming low, but it just removes some of the pressure of hitting things every single day while keeping the benefits of frequency. So it could be that the goal is really hit 5 of the 7 days. And so if you miss one workout that week, then it isn't so punishing. Next section here is an important plan, is the get back on the wagon plan. Cal Newport has a podcast I listen to week after week, one of my favorite authors. So from his book, How to Become a Straight A Student, he writes, restarting after a period of neglect. To date, I have yet to successfully follow any time management system without interruption for longer than 2 months. I try, but inevitably I hit a rough patch. Typically, this happens during the few days following a really busy period. I'm so exhausted from the intensity of the preceding work that I find myself unable to even mention the word to do without breaking into a cold sweat. Further on, he has basic steps to follow in his system. If you skip a few days, all you need to do upon restarting is to dump all the to-dos and deadlines free-floating in your mind onto a sheet of paper and then push these back onto your calendar for future dates. That's the end of the quote. And I'm coming back from a couple months of not working out. My strength feels like it's completely gone. I building up strength those first 3 months. It's back, it feels like, to where I started. The plan right now is just focusing on showing up at all. We moved, so we have a different garage. All the gym equipment isn't set up, so I'm setting up the garage gym again. I'm trying to remember, let me do whatever workouts I can do right now and not wait until I have the perfect garage setup. I'm also coming back from 3 or 4 months not really posting anything online. The press publish muscle feels like it's gone. The plan I have is I don't really have a plan. That's why it dragged on from 1 month, not really posting anything, to now 3 or 4 months. The current plan is to post a newsletter and then turn the newsletter into a video every week. Last section here, a relentless reminder as I try to restart this. This quote is from Relentless Solution Focus. Jason Selk writes, if you find yourself writing down and working on the same thing day after day, don't mistake this for a sign of failure. This is a sign of relentlessness. That's the end of the quote. So some might say I'm unfocused. I'm not in the right season to make weekly content. I'm too old for this. I'm not writing about a niche, so I'm not going to find anyone interested in watching this. I'm only making this because I got hooked into reading some of the newsletters that I filtered out to not see in my inbox, but I was procrastinating, so I clicked all mail, and now I have it in my head that if I make stuff weekly, I'll be able to restore my brain from this mono UI experience of AI prompting that happens day after day after day. And I'll be able to think on my own again. But my cherry-picked book highlights say I'm relentless.